Hey, this is Mike and Ray with Tech Talk, powered by Standard Time. How you doing? We are back, and we were talking after the last broadcast on RFIDs.
Yep.
And I started asking you questions about radio, because radio frequencies, radio, you said completely
RFID.
different. Don't even compare the two. And I said, why? And I said, wait, Ray, let me hit record, because I'm sure people want to know how radio works.
Yeah.
People say radio's dying.
I don't think it will.
I don't think it will either, because local radio, I mean, people love local.
Yes.
And as long as you don't, a lot of radio stations are going satellite now, where the DJ is in Tennessee,
yes,
but
right.
I'm in Colorado.
Yeah.
Those will die. I'm convinced. I think it's all about, if you're local and you're doing local things, you're going to survive. Anyway, that's not what we're
radio
here
survives, I think, because people can do two things at once. They can listen to radio, and they can work on the computer. They can drive.
That's true. But with the invention of podcasts or stuff like that, it's what they want on demand. Even satellite radio.
Right.
Where people are like, okay, well, I like rock, so I'm going to go to my rock station or Pandora or whatever. I guess I could just say radio is going to take different shape as the future goes. But our podcast today, I kind of took us off on a rabbit trail.
How does radio work?
How does radio work? When I was in radio, there's an antenna on top of a mountain, and it depends on where you're at on that antenna, depends on how popular you are, because that's where your signal goes to, right?
Yeah, right.
So is it still like that?
You know, the old radio is. And, of course, internet radio, satellite radio, that's totally different. We can talk about that. But the old radio,
right?
Remember from the 1920s? There was, when radio came out, it was one of the hottest things, the hottest new technology of the 1920s. There was songs written about it. You could listen to, having your radio on. I forget.
Turn your radio on.
Yeah, that's the one.
And listen to the music in the air.
That's the big one, right?
That was the first song that my brother ever sang in our church.
Seriously?
He was like 10.
Wow.
And I still
Turn your radio on.
We have a music podcast that we do. And
Yeah.
I actually played it on there for him and embarrassed him. It was great.
So that was the hottest technology in the 1920s. Everyone had to have a radio. Of course, the radios back then had a dry cell, a little 6-volt. Actually, they had multiple batteries that you would put into your... They didn't plug into the wall. You had battery. You had dry cells that you would go to the drugstore and you would buy dry cells. Just like the alkaline batteries of today, but they were huge. The things were big as a coffee can.
Right.
And you would stick it in there, and there was 6-volt, there was 48-volt, there was different ones that would power the different tubes, vacuum tubes inside these radios. And everyone had to have a radio. You didn't have a radio, you were no one, because you didn't hear the news. Go back to the old, newspaper, but everyone had to have a radio. And back then they had what was called AM radio. Right?
Right.
So, the talk show channels
right.
are all on...
They're still on AM.
Mostly on AM.
Right.
Well, what does the A and the M stand for? Well, that really is how radio works. The A stands for amplitude. The M stands for modulation. So it's amplitude modulation. So basically you have a carrier frequency. What is your favorite radio station? What's the number of that?
Let's 16, do 103.9 on AM. 850.
So 850 KOA here in Colorado. Right. So basically that is the carrier frequency. Okay. And so they broadcast on that frequency, and they have a certain leeway that they can go back and forth. But you don't want two radio stations bleeding into each other. So if you got 850, you could have 840, you could have 860. On the band, right?
Right.
And you don't want them to touch, because then you're listening to one radio program and all of a sudden another one bleeds in.
Right.
That happens sometimes.
Right.
But so basically what they do is they take that carrier frequency, and this is where it gets a little bit techie, and they will modulate the amplitude. Okay. In other words, they change the carrier frequency. You got a frequency, and then they change the the voltage or the power that they're putting out, or the amplitude, the height of the signal. These are all sinusoidal waveforms.
Okay.
And so you simply, the louder you talk, the higher that amplitude is. So remember the old days you used to drive under a bridge. I don't know if this is still the case, but you drive under a bridge, it's all static.
It happened yesterday to me.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think they've improved AM, but in the old days, it used to be really bad. You drive under a tree and it would just go to static. Yeah, because basically the amplitude, the signal would be diminished because it was blocked by this bridge or whatever.
Right.
And so early on in radio, they realized, we can't have that. This is that's awful. You have a mountain in the way. Let's say you're in a valley, and a couple mountains over, you've got the transmitter, the big tall tower. Remember back in the 60s, they had the 50,000 watts.
Right.
Yeah. And it could reach 10 miles.
Right.
Okay. So the thing is, even clouds, anything that's in the way that could block that signal is going to diminish the signal.
Even lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever you hear the lightning come down, and it always gives you static on those stations.
Yeah, because it's interfering with that signal.
Right.
So early on in radio, they realized, okay, this is not a great way to modulate the carrier frequency. So they came up with another way to modulate, and they called it frequency modulation. That's FM.
FM.
So basically, they're taking that frequency. So what's your favorite FM?
We'll say 1039.
Yeah. Okay. So 103.9 megahertz, you have a carrier frequency. If you were able to listen to that with your ear, it'd be this ee sound, right?
Right.
Which you can't because above the hearing frequency. I think your human ear can hear from 300 hertz. Actually, it's down to, I think, 30 hertz up to 5 to 10 kilohertz.
Okay.
Right? And at 10 kilohertz, it's that is so high you can't really hear it.
A dog, maybe.
People claim to be able to hear, but that's a very small, and that's in the thousands of hertz. Again, these are sinusoidal waves. It's like dropping a pebble into a pond. It puts out these little waves.
Right.
It's the same thing with radio. It's putting out these sinusoidal waves that are traveling through the air. So it's exactly like throwing a pebble into the pond. You see those little waves, and you see them, the rings that come out of those, that little drop.
Right.
So you've got this carrier frequency at, what was it, 103.9?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you change that frequency just a little bit, so 103.9.00001, you've just changed it enough that the receiver now says, hey, something's going on here.
Right.
I sense a change. Okay? So as I talk louder, the frequency changes a little more. If I'm silent, the frequency is locked into 103.9. Okay?
Okay.
So silence means no change in frequency. I start talking really loud, and it goes to 103.9.00001. Okay? And so the receiver is much more complex because it now has to lock in on the resonate with that carrier frequency, but it also has to pick up the very slight shifts in that frequency. And that is where it strips out the carrier frequency, and you get those slight changes that equate to sound that the human ear can hear. So they simply take sound that the human ear can pick up, and they modulate or they change that frequency just slightly, and that's how it works. That's the old radio.
Okay, so that's like FM was like AM's HD.
Yeah, right. That was the big thing, man. When that came out, so remember how crystal clear it sounded compared to AM?
Yeah.
AM's gotten a lot better.
AM has gotten a lot better from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It really has.
So, and you remember you used to see these translators, and so they were just another antenna that would be stuck up on a mountain, and they would receive radio frequency and do nothing but transmit it to the next mountain because, sound in the valley there, it's like you totally miss it.
Right. That's pretty true. Okay, so how did FM change with the digital age?
Yeah, so digital is completely different. Basically, with internet radio, like iHeartRadio, those kinds of things where you pull up on your cell phone, you're basically just getting a digital signal. It's a lot like using your data package. It's like downloading a file, except that audio is streamed to you live. But it's exactly like downloading a file. It's like downloading some app onto your phone.
So one of the AM stations I listen to, KVOR.
Yeah.
They always say HD1. What do they mean when they say that?
Well, yeah, all that is just another protocol, another format. There's so many little derivatives of how they're agreeing to send signal to you.
So just making it more strong and
high definition and higher quality. And yeah, that's really all they're doing.
So they're just improving it a little bit more.
But then you have to have an app on your phone that knows how to communicate in that HD1 format. Basically, you can't just beam signals out to the app and expect it to understand everything. The app has to be programmed to be able to decode this special protocol. And that's all they're doing there. But it's exactly like downloading a file, except that as soon as that file begins downloading, they stick it out to the speaker so you can hear it.
Right.
And so you have literally, an MP3 file that
you're listening to.
Exactly. That's all it is. And it's nothing like the old AM, FM radio, which was sent out over radio frequency.
Right.
So for a long, long time, cars, well, first of all, they didn't come with radios, but when they first started coming with radios, they were all AM. Remember that?
Yep.
Back
we
in the
had
60s.
a 70-something Hornet, AMC Hornet.
Yeah.
And had an AM 8-track in it.
Oh, you had an 8-track too.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Dude, we were styling. I always wanted that car. I thought, okay, when I was a kid, one of these days I'm going to drive the Hornet. And it was the ugliest car in the world. And when my parents sold it, I was actually really upset. And they're like, why would you want that? Like, it's an 8-track in it. But
highly sought after now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. There are a couple in town driving around, but anyway. So radio.
Yeah.
It's not a dying breed. They keep, evolving it to kind of fit. Okay, so this is what you've convinced me of, Ray. Because at the beginning I said it some people think it's dying.
Right.
But you convinced me now that they're actually reinventing it so it doesn't die. And what I'm seeing is that people in radio are doing what the music industry should have done and change with the times.
Sure. Yeah.
To stay alive. Because ultimately the music industry didn't do that. And so with MP3 downloads and pirating and all that stuff,
yeah,
they didn't know.
Remember Napster?
I remember Napster. Apparently they're still around.
Oh, they are.
But they charge you for their
$1
stuff.
zillion. And,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'd rather have my Spotify. But that's beside the point. But they didn't get on the bandwagon and just, adapt to that. And so now they're losing because of it. Radio hasn't done that. They've actually shaped with technology, and now you have like Sirius and those other internet or satellite radio stations. You have digital local radio. You have all of this stuff that's keeping up. So,
well, I think they've had to. They've every decade they get a new stay of execution. I mean, you think, okay, radio's done, radio's dead, and then these guys are out there. No, we got to keep this thing going.
Yeah, and they do
come up with something new or else.
There are a couple of stations here in our town that I'm like, why aren't you dead yet? But they just keep. Yeah, they find ways, man.
And people listen to them, and they enjoy them.
They have the listenership. They're going to be around.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much what it boils down to.
I am kind of curious when AM and FM go out, because you got your AM radio, you got your AM FM radio, AM FM stereo,
right,
in your car. Well, when does that go out?
Right, because now they have cars with internet. And that you can stream Pandora and all that stuff
and
in
cellular.
Your car. And cellular, and you can put your iPhones in and just stream your music from there. And
it's incredibly expensive to transmit. I mean, you literally have thousands or millions of watts of energy. That's huge. Mm-hmm. You think of a 100 watt light bulb. You touch that thing and it'd burn your fingers, right?
Oh yeah.
imagine being close to one of these, 50,000, 100,000, megawatt stations. That is so much energy,
right?
Just to transmit over the air,
right?
When, you got cellular and satellite. I just wonder. It just makes me wonder how long that.
It seems like a ticking time bomb. It does that. They're gonna one day something's gonna have to happen with it. Ultimately, it's gonna be too expensive, or they're gonna stop making, the equipment to, just like any old technology. Eventually, it's not supported anymore.
Have you ever seen the vacuum tubes that run those things?
No.
Okay, they're like.
But I've heard about them.
They're like 4 times the size of a football.
Really?
They're very big. I mean, they're like remember the old CRT TV?
Yeah.
Television, by the way, works on the same principle. It's all done with, AM and FM. They basically have their audio band, and then they have their video band. And so that's how the old, prior to cable, that's how the old local stations would transmit. And they basically had 2 bands, and they were just transmitting the same thing. But these radio vacuum tubes from back in the day, man, they're huge. And they're scary looking because they have these giant electrodes that you would connect to them, because you got to have so much power.
I would love to get one of those just to hang on my wall.
Oh, yeah.
Because they look nifty.
Yeah, they do. And they're like those big, remember those big arc lamps?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like that.
That's pretty sweet.
I mean, they're powerful.
I'll have to go on eBay and look for them.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're out there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they're out there.
You get you one.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to talk radio today.
Yeah,
because
that's how radio works.
Yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. That's where I started, so it's good to know a little bit more about it. Thanks, Ray.
All right.
Okay, so check back next time. We're doing more podcasts. If you have any suggestions on tech you want us to talk about or that you're wondering about, let us know at the website, stdtime.com, or you can email us. There's an email address up there that you can get a hold of us on. So thanks again for stopping by. Check back often because we're uploading all the time. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.